Let me move on to the next session. अभी हमने इतिहास की बात करी और अब हम एक ऐसे वक्त की बात करने वाले हैं जो शायद हम में से कोई नहीं चाहता कि वापस आए. This session is titled as COVID Warriors, the session 3 of this wonderful last day of the Bhopal Literature and Art Festival. And for this session, we are going to have Tarun Pithode ji in conversation with Mohammed Suleman ji and Dr. Skand Trivedi ji. मैं चाहूंगा हम सब तालियों के साथ उनका मंच पे स्वागत करें. The three names are the familiar names. COVID Warriors, Tarun Pithode ji in conversation with Mohammed Suleman ji and Dr. Skand Trivedi ji. I request everyone to please be settled down. About the author, Tarun Kumar Pithode ji is an officer of the Indian Administrative Services and has worked in different capacities such as Assistant Collector Ujjain, SDM Dabra, CEO Zilla Panchayat Khandwa, AMD Urja Vikas Nigam, Project Director State Wide Area Network and Director Professional of the Examination Board, and he has also served as the Collector in Rajgarh, Sihor, Baitul and Bhopal. Probably why he's a familiar face for the people of Bhopal. His book includes I Am Possible, Happiness, a New Model of Human Behavior, टूटते रिश्ते दरकते घर, एंड जिस बुक के ऊपर आज हम सब बातचीत करने के लिए यहाँ मौजूद हैं, द बैटल अगेंस्ट कोविड, डायरी ऑफ अ ब्यूरोक्रेट. In his book, Tarun ji recounts his experiences and struggles and those of his colleagues in different states while managing the crisis, especially during the first and second waves. As the discussion for the session, we are delighted to have Mohammed Suleman ji. He is one of the most IAS officers of Madhya Pradesh and belongs to the 1989 batch. He had obtained a master's degree with distinction in civil engineering from Aligarh Muslim University. Apart from being the additional chief secretary of Madhya Pradesh, he has held the post of managing director, MPRDC, principal secretary, energy, commerce and industry, and PWD and more. His services during the COVID times have been exemplary and commendable. Moving on to our second discussion for the day, we are delighted to have Dr. Skand Trivedi ji. He passed his MBBS and MD in General Medicine with gold medal from Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Medical Sciences. Subsequent to that, he passed his Doctorate of Medicine Cardiology from prestigious Christian Medical College at Vellore, Tamil Nadu, with the University Gold Medal yet again. He was one of the founder faculties for establishing Bhopal Memorial Hospital and Research Center. Gentlemen, I would request you to please unfold the conversation. Please give a big round of applause, everyone.
Thank you very much. So we have Tarun with us, who has written this book, The Battle Against COVID, Diary of a Bureaucrat. I would want to start the discussion with that, but let me first welcome Dr. Skand Trivedi, who is the distinguished medical profession in Madhya Pradesh, not only in Bhopal, but in the entire state of Madhya Pradesh. I would request all of you to please give a big round of applause to him. He has been a great support to us during the management of epidemic, both in an advisory role and as a practitioner. So we are so thankful for him to be here. Tarun, my first question to you, it was a tough time when you were working as collector of Bhopal. That's a time when pandemic had just started. Nobody exactly knew what's going on. We were not even sure of our strategy where we should be headed. There's a lot of confusion in the public itself about what is the right thing. And I remember the days when a COVID patient was treated almost like a criminal. He has to be somehow put in a jail, kept away from the society. And, he was never treated as a patient, but more of as a criminal. So that was the time when it was not only a medical challenge, but also a management challenge for the government as such. and still you could keep your thoughts together and could write a book. So I would really want you to tell us what was the motivation for taking up such a challenge during such a period.
Thank you, sir. Sir, when I left the office, then I realized that for the last 3 to 4 months, they were so intense for me that I felt as if 4 years have passed, and every moment I had lived, I had felt about what I was doing and what was happening at that time, and I could feel the pain which people felt at the time, the difficulty we had in enforcing the lockdown, in ensuring the supply of vegetables and supply of essential goods. And then came the movement of labor, migrant workers who started moving from one part of the country to the other part, and many of them passed through Madhya Pradesh. So these events were so intense, they touched my heart. I thought when I left the office, I thought I should write something about it. And when I started writing, one of my friends suggested that you should not only write about your own experiences, but you should be writing about the experiences of few other officers, maybe across the country, so that people can have an idea as to what has happened behind the curtain. Because people used to feel that the people who are standing at the forefront, as we know, they were the only people who were managing it. But how management was happening right from the top to the bottom, but the chain which was the district collector. So I thought I should tell about the work done by the teams across the country, especially district administration. And that was the motivation, sir. That was the reason I started writing. And I thought there should be a document which tells the people in future as to what happened, and this documentation remains forever.
With your permission, as I mentioned, the initial days of COVID were absolutely different, and there was no full knowledge of how to treat a patient and how to deal with the patient. I still remember those days when contact tracing used to be the norm, and we'll enforce containment zones. What do you think? What was the biggest challenge that you faced in those initial days as Collector of Bhopal? I remember once calling you up that somebody in Ashoka Garden area was circulating a video about COVID being a hoax and why nothing should be done about it, and you took some action also. So what was the biggest challenge that you faced during the initial days of COVID?
So the biggest challenge was convincing people to remain in home, because people somehow felt, as you said, that such kind of videos and messages were doing rounds, and people were feeling that this is just a hoax. So we had to make people believe that this virus is real and you need to stay in your home to be safe. And second challenge was to take people out of their home and to put them in quarantine centers. And as you said that people initially thought that this is something very untouchable, and one was not able to feel the anxiety and the stress the patient was feeling, and we were just taking their family members and everyone who came in contact with that patient outside. So taking people to quarantine center was a challenge, keeping people inside their home was a challenge, ensuring the supply of essential goods was really a big challenge, sir. And at the same time, when amidst all this, when some students from Kashmir, they were staying in Jahangirabad, they told us that they want to go back to their homes. That was a big challenge for us, to take people out of that particular area where the virus had stuck the most, and there were many cases which were coming from Jahangirabad. So to ensure that everyone who leaves is not positive and he or she doesn't spread the virus any further, that was, I feel, the biggest challenge for us.
Tarun, I think equally challenging was writing this book, penning this book down, when you are wearing a hat of a serving bureaucrat and that of an author. How did you balance yourself? I read with interest your book, and I find that you have wobbled only a bit when you are representing your thoughts, when you are representing your experience. By and large, you have done justice, and I'm extremely thankful to you for having brought number of heroes of COVID You know, all we heard all along was only one, that was Sonu Sood. But you brought in hundreds of Sonu Soods. I mean, it's exemplary. Your book is great. I advise everybody to go through it, because otherwise many heroes would have remained unsung. So we would love to know, how did you balance this?
It was really difficult, you know, when I started writing and interacting with so many people and requesting them for the time to either give interview or reply to the questionnaire or give their whatever they have in, whatever work they have done, to give it to me in writing, something like that, so that I can compile it. That was one of the biggest challenge. But when I was interacting with people, I realized the kind of hard work they have done. And as you said, there are many unsung heroes, like one Mr. R.K. Singh. He was sub-inspector in a Thana, Jahangirabad Thana, and the way he was conducting, the way he was working was inspiring. So I thought I should be writing about it. Then there is an SDM, Jameel, about whom I have written. I remember he had not slept for more than 3-4 days on many occasions, on not only one occasion, because he was commanding that area. He was in charge of Jahangirabad, Mangalwar, and all this area where the spread was maximum. So it was really difficult, but I have still tried that I could write about as many people as possible, as many sectors as possible. I have tried to write about the work done by various NGOs in a very brief. I have tried to write about the institutions like Red Cross, various other institutions that donated us a lot of stuff, masks, sanitizers, to fight against this virus. And when we appealed that we require these things, people came forward, not only for these materials, but for making available the food and all. So there were many heroes, and I feel I should have included many more, but it was really difficult to balance and to complete the book. So I could include these many people as possible.
So if I read it correctly, I mean, you mentioned that in your book you have talked about the role of the government, individuals in the government, role of NGOs, hospitals, the private sector especially, and their tremendous contribution to the management of the epidemic. And you tried to balancedly evaluate their contribution in your book in a very objective fashion. So what is your perception? How were these roles related, which was, kind of critical for the management of epidemic?
Sir, thank you, sir, for asking that question. I feel no one can take credit of managing the pandemic, but the whole society, the way the society has come forward and the way I have felt it, everyone was playing his or her role in a very positive manner, right from the top to the bottom. We were getting so great support from our seniors. It's not that I am just praising them, sir, but when I express that I am really not able to manage the kind of things happening, because we had to generate passes and we were getting requests in thousands of numbers every day. So it was really not manageable. Then these cases were coming, we had to make many teams. At that point of time, I was told by the seniors that, you should be asking for more officers, and I got those officers. So the kind of support we had. So I feel it was not the work of a single person or single agency. At the same time, as I have mentioned, many NGOs, they were distributing food, they were helping the workers to travel from one place to another. They were distributing even sleepers and shoes to these people who lacked it. And then there were people who were distributing foods, who were distributing ration to the needy. So at that time, there were many doctors, many nurses, many volunteers who came forward. They never cared for their life. And this is how the whole society, as I always say, I gave an example last time also when I was speaking somewhere. This example is about how civilization has grown. What is one of the most important thing? People feel that sometimes it could be, discovery of the wheel or something like that. But one of the most important thing was how this civilization has grown only because we cooperate with each other, we help each other. And the example of Margaret Mead, when she, a great anthropologist, she told that the breaking of femur and, the healing of femur is one of the greatest example of how civilization has grown. So I feel with the help of each other, we all grow. With the help of everyone, we could manage so many things, and that's why the management of COVID in India has happened. In my personal view, it has happened very well, and we see the results today. We have done very well in various other sectors.
I also read somewhere in your memoirs that there was a case of Mr. Veerapandyan, DM of Kurnool, who was first hunted by media and then haunted by media. And of course, we also had similar set of problems in higher administration here in the healthcare. How did you handle this? Because it was tough time. You have to deliver, you have to answer to the media. And by and large, I think media was reasonable, but sometimes they were not. So how did you manage that? It was tough time for all of you.
Not to make people feel happy, but I should tell, sir, that people in media, they want communication. And if we are able to tell what we are doing, and if we are able to hear them for the things we are lacking, so we get great support, and that's what happened during that time. Sometimes I was faltering, and many people were suggesting, people from media, people from the society, and of course my seniors and even juniors, they were telling me that you're not doing this particular thing correctly. So we listened, we always communicated to them, and I feel that was one of the reasons that they were supporting us. And I never said that if you have criticized me, if you have said something which I may not like, but I never said that you should not be asking that, or you should be controlling these things. So I feel that was the reason that we could really sail through, and we could help the society together rather than being an individual.
Sir, I'm sure you also faced them.
No, actually, I just want to come back to his book. One of the interesting aspects that I noticed is that, you know, he could get views and experiences of many of his colleagues, not only from Madhya Pradesh, but from other state also. And knowing how the civil service work, I really find it pretty challenging that anybody would want to, you know, contribute in an individual's venture. People would want their own pound of flesh. So I really want to know what was the strategy that you followed that others could willingly contribute to your effort and share their experiences, and you could put them in the form of a book.
Sir, when I expressed this, sir, I told my friends that there would be 5-6 contributors, and eventually when I talked to people, I realized that maybe some of them would be able to give their contribution, some of them would be able to give time for me to interview them, but maybe some might not. So I started interacting with more and more people, and I realized some of them were really forthcoming. They said, yes, we want you to include this, and that way some small, sometimes some misunderstandings were also there. Some people were feeling that we all together are writing this book and all, but by and large, everyone felt very happy when I interacted with them, because it was a learning process also. I learned a lot from them, and it was not the time when I was writing the book. It was the time when I was really suffering while performing my duties, that I interacted with many of these friends, and they were telling me very good things, how to manage, and their ideas I implemented and I got success. So I told them, and they were very happy. Now when I have requested them that I want to bring the Hindi edition, so everyone has concurred, and they have said, yes, you just go ahead. And I feel, sir, but it was really a great thing that I could bring out experiences of so many people, because I feel this will help many other people who want to understand what happened behind the scene. So it would help them.
Let me respond to your question with Abhilashji sitting there and staring about the issue of media. So Abhilashji, let me just put it this way that, you know, I, with zero experience of health, I came in to deal with the COVID, never worked in the health department, and I landed when it was just starting. I must have had at least 500 meetings in the last 2 years relating to COVID with the Chief Minister. At least 500 is the minimum number. And you know our Chief Minister, in every meeting he would want a PPT, a PowerPoint presentation about how things are, status, approach and everything. Gradually it got standardized into about 42 slide presentation that I had to make every day for almost 7 months, update data and everything. So the strategy to deal with the media evolved from that. First time in Madhya Pradesh, my interaction with media was a PPT-driven intervention. I would simply call up my great friend Sarnam Singh, who is no more here, the AIMS director, and ask him to sit with me, and we will get entire media there and make a PowerPoint presentation, giving them data after data after data. Beyond that, they will have absolutely no questions to be asked because everything was upfront there. I think it did help a lot. Four times. I did that 4 times, but then made a faux pas 4th time. And the faux pas was that I simply said this something called remdesivir is a useless drug because this is what he had told me. So I said bluntly, it's a useless drug, please don't use it. And then all the all the hell broke loose on my head, you know, as if I don't want to do a thing like this. Well, not to take away from the topic under discussion, in Madhya Pradesh we had somebody from Gujarat came up with remdesivir which was not proper. It was a farji, it was a kind of a pure water, so to say. I have data which basically says that the patient which were given that pure water and the patient which were given remdesivir, the survival was better in the pure water patients. So
I stand then.
yeah, please.
Tarun, in your book, I find something very interesting. It's about your friend from Gandhinagar writing about the plight of 450 migrant laborers who couldn't move anywhere. And he offered them shelter for a period of 1 month, not only shelter but food. I'm sure there must be many people in Bhopal or Madhya Pradesh also whom you would like to name, which probably have not mentioned in book. I don't want you to talk anything what is written in the book, otherwise people won't read it.
There's one example in which I interacted with some of the alumni of my college, and I requested them to donate money, and just in a day they donated 3 lakh rupees. I appealed to another person who said, don't disclose my name. When we were making software, we were thinking that we may require some funds. So we asked him to donate in Red Cross Society. That person donated. We required some money for the people who were doing contact tracing, because these were the functionaries who were getting very less from us. They were doing this TB contact tracing. So they used to get hardly 5,000 rupees, but they had put everything for this pandemic, and they were taking all kind of risks. They were going and getting infected so many times. So we appealed, and the money came in Red Cross fund. And from Red Cross fund, we could give them some more money in the form of some honorarium or something. So this is how things work there. We appealed to many people to give ration. That also came. And we made these packets. This is very interesting when people were asking for a lot of ration and we did not have it. So when we appealed to few people, we got some packets, and these packets were distributed to various people's representative also, and it was distributed to people. So there was no fight, there was no complaint, and it was running very smooth because of it.
I also see, there are some hardcore questions for the bureaucrat now. All these were soft, like a journalist or a bureaucrat, but now you have elaborated the plight of migrant workers. The scene reminded us of partition days. The only difference being, during the partition, no one was packed in tankers. But I believe during the COVID times, citizens were packed in a tanker and transported. What intrigues me is that instead of making arrangement for their safe transport, why did the administration was more interested in looking for their shelter and food? Probably arranging for a transport would have been much simpler. This is a journalist in me asking to a bureaucrat.
Sir, I am sure you would also like to add, sir, because sir knows what has happened in Madhya Pradesh. I'll just tell story of a person who crossed the border in Madhya Pradesh and he just wept. He said that video is there for people to see in YouTube, and anyone can watch that. This person wept and said, nowhere in the country has seen this kind of support which was established in Madhya Pradesh. And I really compliment the whole administration, the senior administration, the government of Madhya Pradesh, because we had done so much to transport people from one place to another. I remember there were so many trains which were running from Gujarat to Madhya Pradesh to Bhopal. In fact, to the extent that at one point of time I had to request my senior that, sir, please give this train to Vidisha because we are not able to handle these many trains. We had used more than 1,000 buses to transport these people from one place to another. There were many workers from Dindori, from Umaria, from Balaghat, Sivni. They all came here. They got deboarded in Habibganj or Bhopal, and they were transported from here to other place. And it's not only the transport, but they were given food, they were given shelter if they came in night, and they were then sent in the morning. So proper care and proper support was given to them, and that's why people were very happy when it comes to helping the migrant workers in Madhya Pradesh. And it's not only the government's effort, but private people came forward. As I said, when we requested people, they donated new shoes, new chappals for these people who did not have it.
I've been asked by the organizers to open the talk for discussions from the audience. But before I do that, I would like to quote, and afterwards Tarun writes beautifully and summarizes the essence of COVID pandemic in 4 lines. That brings out journalist in him or author in him. And I would like him to elaborate a little bit more before we go to the audience. And it reads, nature is sending alarming signals with alarming regularity. And we are running out of time to heed to signals. Now is the time to come to terms with nature. Otherwise, things will be irreparable. I think this concludes most of the thing about COVID or many more COVIDs to come. So I would like you to elaborate on that. After this, we'll open the hall for discussion.
Sir, I would thank you for this question. I also request that after I say something, I would also ask few questions to both of you, because I have something in my mind also. So this conclusion is nothing but the talk which was happening in the last session also about sustainability. From 90 onwards, we have been taught and we have been told that now we should be living in a world which is more sustainable. What is sustainability? A person who lives here doesn't create so much of impact that the environment is lost forever. And we always leave something which remains intact for the future generations, as the kids sitting here. Because as we keep on using things, slowly and gradually, things deteriorate. May it be water, may it be environment, maybe many other things. So that should not happen. That's what I want to say with this book, because this COVID also gives a message that, you know, if you do not keep hygiene, if you really move so much, I would stop you. What COVID did was lockdown. And what happened in lockdown? We all stopped. And that helped the nature to heal up. So I feel this message in COVID, we should understand that we should know how to live with nature, how to live a sustainable life. And now, sir, I would, in fact, before we leave it to audience, I would just want to ask one question from Suleman sir and from you as well. Sir, I want to ask about the vaccination drive, sir. I have written about vaccination drive in my book, but I feel people should also know what has happened and how Madhya Pradesh has taken the lead so that it is praised all around the country. People were asking me, in fact, how you have done this vaccination so that the Madhya Pradesh is the one of the leading states with great number of vaccinations and the success of vaccination.
Right, okay. So Abhilash ji doing a bit of a mix of match between Hindi and English, क्योंकि बच्चे भी हैं. So the vaccination drive was unique in many ways. First time we were actually vaccinating adults. Our earlier entire experience of vaccination was basically vaccination of children. So it's a kind of a huge change in perspective कि बच्चों के बजाय हम started from 18 onwards. Second part of the vaccination, you know, as we thought initially was that we will open up vaccination centers, publicize it, and people would actually use something called CoWIN and then book their slots and come there, get them vaccinated, go happily home saying All good, all good. We realized very early this is not going to happen. People were not registering and not, especially in rural areas, the internet connectivity itself become a challenge. So expect people to come and register and then go there won't simply happen. So Madhya Pradesh mein we changed the strategy of reaching out to people to vaccinate them. Difficult numbers to say here, but we at one point of time had the capacity to be at 14,000 places every day to put up the vaccination centers where anybody could walk in and get himself vaccinated. We used to believe that a vaccination center shouldn't have more than 100 people coming for it. There were vaccination centers where we had to go up as high as 600 persons getting vaccinated in a single day at a single place. There were days when we could vaccinate 28 lakh people in a single day. 28 lakh doses were administered in a single day. So this change from waiting for people to approach for vaccination to actually going out to the people to vaccinate them, help them. I have beautiful photographs of healthcare workers crossing rivers, climbing small hills, going field to field. Somebody, farmer is working in his field, going and vaccinating him there. In the process, bypassing some of the processes also of waiting for half an hour there. So, but this strategy helped. We vaccinated almost 98% of our guesstimates. See, there was no target, so to say. We assumed that 18 plus will be this much number, and we crossed almost 98% of that number for both the doses. So this strategy change plus the Chief Minister's vision of involving the public in the campaign, making them the front, creating a kind of a festive atmosphere using the local community, somebody putting a balloon, somebody arranging for tea, all these kind of things did help in achieving a huge success in vaccination. And my doctor's colleague do tell me that Omicron couldn't be what it could be because large part of our society was already vaccinated or had antibodies otherwise also.
Thank you, sir. One question from you, sir. Can you please tell about the oxygen bubble? You did something and you shared with us, and that really helped, I think.
So we work in private setup, and government charged us that we should open up our hospital for COVID patients, and we resisted that. So in lieu, we have to give something. So we created another facilities we took over some hotels and some hospitals. Now the problem was how to handle with the manpower. Because if I leave the manpower as such, they will all get infected and they'll go away. I mean, we won't have any manpower. So what we did is we designed an air bubble, and I got the concept from NASA, looking at the NASA, that space shuttle. You see people doing spacewalk with that hood. So I created that hood, and in the hood we connected with the pipelines, and the pipelines was connected with a big, large compressor holding about 2,000 liters capacity. So that the doctors or the healthcare workers who were looking after the patients of COVID, the problem is those COVID patients, they exhale virus. And I did not want these exhaled air full of virus to be inhaled by the healthcare workers. So we pumped in air from about 200, 300 feet away from our healthcare facility. And this was great, remarkable, and we ran it in 2 out of 5 facilities. And in these 2 facilities, none of our healthcare worker got infected.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. I would request you to please move on to the audience, I believe. Yes, gentleman in the front. Please, a question or answers, please, संक्षेप में रखेगा.
बिल्कुल. तरुण जी, इस किताब में मैंने पूरी पढ़ी है, मगर मैं सोचता रहा कि आप कलेक्टर थे, हम सब जनता हैं, मीडिया भी है, मगर मैं सोचता रहा कि ऐसा कौन सा दिन था जिस दिन आपकी नींद उड़ गई हो कि आज तो कुछ गजब हो जाएगा. वैसा कोई एक्सपीरियंस बताइए.
नींद तो वैसे रोज उड़ी रहती थी, लेकिन जिस दिन नींद खुली और उसके बाद नींद नहीं आई, वो दिन था जब सर, आई थिंक यू माइट ऑल्सो रिमेंबर सर, जब स्टार्टिंग में 2-4 केस आना ही बहुत बड़ी बात होती थी. एक दिन जब 73 हमने सुना और वो केसेस थे जिसमें बहुत सारे सैंपल्स दिल्ली गए हुए थे और 15 दिन से उसकी रिपोर्ट आना बाकी थी। तो मुझे लग रहा था यार 15 दिन हो गए, वो लोग तो ठीक भी हो रहे होंगे, बेचारों को क्वारंटाइन करके रखा हुआ है। लेकिन जब वो रिपोर्ट आई और उसमें 73 पॉजिटिव निकले तो मुझे लगा कि आज मैं गया, आज मेरा क्या होगा मैं नहीं जानता हूँ। और मैं जस्ट तलाश रहा था कोई कोना कि मैं कैसे जाके अपना मुंह छुपा लूँ, कि मुझे ऐसा लग रहा था जैसे ये मैंने ही इनको पॉजिटिव कर दिया है और ये 73 क्यों पॉजिटिव हो गए हैं, मुझसे सवाल पूछा जाएगा, मेरे पास जवाब नहीं होगा। और वो दिन बहुत ही भयानक था। और उसके बाद हर दिन जब मैं सुबह उठता था तो 5 बजे सबसे पहले उठ के कभी 4, कभी 5, कभी 6, जैसे नींद खुलती तो पहले मोबाइल में देखते थे कि आज कितने पॉजिटिव आए। सर हम लोगों ने बहुत बाईपास करने का भी ट्राई किया था कि हमें सबसे पहले पता लग जाए। उस समय हो रहती थी कि कितने केसेज आए वो हमें पता लग जाए, लेकिन वो इतनी डेडली न्यूज़ रहती थी कि लगभग डिफिकल्टी डूबी थी।
Sir, my question is, you have interacted with so many people for writing this book, research also. Do you think today, do we know the end time of terror is as far as COVID is concerned? Next part of my question is with two gentlemen, Mr. Suleman and Dr. Trivedi. Is the state machinery prepared to face the same type of this pandemic of the level of second wave of corona?
I think the end in sight, I feel कोविड इस तरह से जैसे बना हुआ है शायद बना रहे। लेकिन किसी ना किसी
Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Lead and Prospect Manager. In this week's training, I'm going to show you how to create this incredible Lead and Prospect Manager, complete with documents, communication, a dynamic admin screen, the ability to add any type of project, complete with a fully functional Kanban, and an incredible dashboard. You're going to be able to manage all your contacts, and I'm going to show you how to do that every step of the way. I hope you'll join us. It's going to be an incredible training. I cannot wait.
Assure you that we are much better prepared than what we used to be. I remember in the initial days of COVID, we could do only 80 tests per day. And we now do more than 80,000 tests per day. So we can actually test pretty fast. In those days, 17 of my district hospital didn't have something called an ICU. Now, in last 1 year, we have in the government sector only added around 2,100 ICU beds to deal with many kind of patients. We didn't have oxygen. As you know, the liquid medical oxygen was only available in one medical college, and the capacity was 10 tons. Now, in the state sector, we have a capacity of around 500 tons in the medical college and hospitals. And the private sector has hugely expanded its capacity. Initially, there was a lot of resistance in the private sector to deal with the COVID patients. Now the private sector is fully geared up and ready to deal with any eventuality. So I would say we are much better than what we used to be. And that should give us a lot of confidence. If anything goes bad, we should be able to handle it.
Okay, one quick question, please.
I
Quick
think
question.
my friends are not troubling you much, Tarun sir.
Just 1 minute, sir. I'll get the mic to you. Just 1 minute. Sir, please, quick question.
I think my friends are not troubling you much. So my question, because in your introduction you have said कि भाई पत्रकार बहुत ऐसी तस्वीरें दिखा रहे थे और फिर आप पहले चैप्टर में लिखते हैं कि किसी को पता नहीं था कि क्या करना है, तो थोड़ा सा विरोधाभास था। सवाल मेरा ये था सर कि काफ़ी सारी स्टोरीज हमने की हैं जिसमें शमशान के आंकड़े कुछ और कह रहे थे, प्रशासन के आंकड़े कुछ और कह रहे थे। ये ठीक बात है कि आसपास के ज़िलों के लोग भी आते थे, लेकिन जब हमने उनको भी जोड़ा तब भी वो आंकड़े सही नहीं बैठते थे। तो मेरा सवाल बड़ा स्पष्ट है कि क्या कोई ऐसे निर्देश थे कि इन आंकड़ों को बाहर नहीं आना जिससे पैनिक ना फैले, या एक स्ट्रैटेजी थी, या फिर अवेयर नहीं था कि इतने लोगों की मौत हो रही है? मौतें हुई थी।
आपने तरुण से पूछा है ना?
जी जी नहीं, यू कैन ऑल्सो आंसर।
No, I'm ready to answer. If you want, I can.
Tarun, the author, will reply to this.
Yes. Sir, please go ahead.
मैं ये कह सकता हूँ ऐसे बिल्कुल भी कभी कोई निर्देश मुझे बिल्कुल भी नहीं दिए गए।
Okay.
No, bilkul. I'm being absolutely truthful to you when I say this, that the question of hiding anything was simply not there, but there is a factual issue. See, the health department is not a counter for dead bodies. We much rather count our patients, so many patients are there. The registration of death and life is someone else's job. So you are actually, many of time, the wrong question was asked to the wrong person and the answer was also wrong. So that was the challenge that point of
Okay,
time.
let us quickly move to the last question.
Can you share a few learnings, at least two, one good and bad, which could be useful for post-COVID Bhopal or Madhya Pradesh?
I think the learning is that we should.
Sir, I'm so sorry. After the session. Please go ahead.
The learning is we should learn how to deal with such pandemics, and now what to learn. Whenever such things happen, we should plan well and we should execute well. This is what I feel. In nutshell, I cannot go beyond it because it'll give me so many things. When small things happen, how we manage, how we interact with people. As we were talking, I have already answered few things that we should communicate properly, as sir has also said. Yes, it's applicable to post-COVID Bhopal also. This is one thing which happened and we should learn from it and we should move on and we should implement these things for our future challenges. I'm sorry, she wanted to ask if you allow.
Sir, I'm really sorry, we're running out of time. देखिए, सभी के सवाल है, मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूँ कि अब हॉल के बाहर आप सवाल जरूर पूछ सकते हैं. They are here for a while. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for that wonderful discussion. Meanwhile, I would request Mr. Abhilash Khandekarji, the founding member of Society for Culture and Environment, to please come forward and felicitate our author and discussants for this session. This is a beautiful painting, the BLF mascot, a tribal art painting made by Padma Shri Bhuri Bhai ji. And we have much to go along for our discussants. Tarun ji being the author and Suleman ji and Trivedi ji being the wonderful discussants that we had for this session. They made the conversation enriching and interesting.